everybody, this is Anthony Bjarnason. With me today to talk everything about her time at Silicon Valley Comic Con. Robin, for some odd reason. But, ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only. I
JD.
mean, goddamn. um,
I'm Kazutan. We both do like the same cons. It's
uh,
okay. Nice try.
yeah. I was just buying time just to see if I would guess the right one. Kazu.
We
So, Kazutan is with me today, talk about everything about Silicon Valley Comic Con.
hello.
So, for those who don't know, it was uh, created by Stan Lee and Steve Wozniak,
Correct.
which is the weirdest two pairings.
Silicon Valley Comic Con is basically a rebranding of what used to be Big Wow Comic Fest. So it's like a
Okay.
conglomerate of Big Wow, which was I don't really know why. I didn't look too far into why he decided to do it, but yeah. So then they started calling it Silicon Valley Comic Con.
So, I think first off the bat is the details of this convention. So, it was in San Jose at the Marconi.
It was 3 days. It was from March 18th to 20th, so it spanned Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
And what were the prices like?
So weekend, I don't know if it was lower if you registered earlier,
Mm-hmm.
but from when I started looking into attending, like I started looking into like really like seriously going then. So it was a pretty pricey convention, and on top of that, if you wanted to do any autograph signings or any celebrity con, VIP is also extra. So just for standard full weekend attendance, it was $100 for the full weekend. If you did separate days for Sunday were $50, or it might have been 40 for Sunday, but
Mm-hmm.
either way, it was pricey.
Wow. So happening the weekend, um, was to put it into layman's terms, it was a pretty big mess in terms like of some. I think I heard that the registration for the con was pretty bad.
Yeah. So, for me personally, and the person I whatsoever, because something that I never experienced with cons before is they actually, if you purchased your badges ahead of time, well, at least ahead of time enough, you stand in the registration line. We were there the full weekend, so we went on Friday. When I looked on Friday, the registration line was like, there was no line for registration. The registration line was awful. It was from the entrance of the convention center, wrapped around the parking lot, and then went down the block. Oh my God, I'm having AX flashbacks from before when they didn't know how to handle their over registration population. And I'm like, oh my God, this is bad.
What
I was
was like? What were some of the? I wouldn't say speculation, but like, what was the cause of like having such a long line for registration?
honestly, it was probably badges at the day of, and I guess it's also their badge system was different from most conventions as well. Instead of the
Mm-hmm.
usual just badge thing,
Right.
they had this RFID chip, I think is what it's called,
Yeah.
which you actually had to physically tap against the scanner, kind of like when you go to Disneyland. Maybe it takes longer to process those badges, give them each individual numbers, and then register them and tap them to make sure that they worked. So maybe that's why registration took for a little bit. Just watching the line to see how fast it moved, and it didn't really move too much.
I
So
see.
I'm guessing that registration and letting you go, they had to do this weird like RFID chip.
So
And
the
then yeah.
oh, go ahead, sir.
So because of the RFID chip, it was like herds of people standing in line to get inside because you had to physically tap each person's badge to the scan
I see.
held up to. And then if you were a cosplayer who was wearing a really big costume, trying to like maneuver your wrist to tap into the convention was also kind of
About this thing is that you're not the first person to bring up the UFID chip.
hmm.
Jeremy, which you can go. We talked about the WonderCon, and they were using
They're doing the same thing there.
this same idea there. Although the difference was, and they made it work as to Silicon Valley Comic Con, it was on the wrist.
Right, exactly. Because the badge you can take on and off and hang it around your neck, and like huge problem because then you have no. Because there are people like who were wearing like stormtrooper outfits who couldn't really get their like badge out, and they would just say, "Oh, I have my badge." Badge, like how are you supposed to know?
I believe that this was built specifically to cut down on people ghosting, and this has been so interesting to hear from both ends on Jeremy's side saying like it was fine, it was a complete success, then hearing your end like it.
I mean, from what I've heard, it was just kind of a huge pain for everyone because it's kind of like there was check-in for the RFID is like kind of a like just kind of
Yeah.
so the bottom floor there wasn't really any check-in, but if you wanted to go into the main area of the con, which is like most cons, the dealer's hall, there were like maybe like 10 or so, or more might be understating, but 10 check-in stands for a con attendance of about 60,000 people caused a lot of backup. And it did what it needed to do, but I just wasn't used to the sort of like cattle herding of people just to get into the dealers.
Anime Expo, or the year that fanime that we all remember and love.
Oh God, LionCon. LionCon.
I think it's interesting the fact that anime comic conventions have a different way of formatting the way
Right,
that
yeah.
the conventions are.
Mm-hmm.
For comic conventions, for this one, the dealers hall. What was the format of this? Was it like dealers like a dealers hall room, and then there's a room for panels, so on and so on?
Yeah, the dealers hall itself was definitely unique in terms to a like actual like specified comic convention since WonderCon when it was still here in the city, which was like what 2011, something that gets to me every time. But so I haven't been to a big comic convention since then, and even then I barely remember what I did because I went to WonderCon as well. The setup I'm usually used to for dealers hall is the typical one you see at anime conventions, which is like half dealers hall, half artist alley, and that's basically how it goes. The gimmicks of Silicon Valley Comic Con was because it's Silicon Valley Comic Con and also hosted by Steve Wozniak, was they had this entire section of the dealers hall that was drones and stuff.
That's interesting.
So yeah, it was super interesting, and it was like kind of cool and also kind of weird at the same time because on one hand, which is super cool, I didn't get a chance to try it, nor did I really want to because I get motion sick really, really easily. So I've tried virtual reality having a good time, and that was cool. And then one of the coolest technologies that I saw was they actually had a cool demonstration of the replica.
Cool.
Super duper cool. Yeah, that was super cool. I got to actually see it open, and I didn't get to hold it. They wouldn't let you hold it, but that was okay. I got to see the Dominator gun, which was awesome.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that to be at a comic convention. I would have expected something like that at Anime Expo. But on top of that, as you're wandering through, like that took up basically the entire middle section of the dealer's hall. And aside from the couple that really struck, digital art software, which is really cool, but then some of the smaller ones, they kind of just seemed like you were walking through like commercial booth, and then you would get kind of like jumped by some other booth that was trying to like sell you something. So that was kind of weird. It seemed like there was a lot of, I guess they're kind of like a commercial. So that was kind of weird. Like there was a Yakult booth, which was really weird. And then for like the Exploratorium or something like that, something similar, like I think the Children's Technology Museum or something.
My question revolved because it is Silicon Valley Comic Con that
right.
Very technology based, apps and so on. In terms like to a comic book convention, Congoer would be interested in.
Yeah, some of them were. So there was an app by Topps who makes like baseball cards and other collectible cards that let you I think it basically let you catalog your collectibles. And there's I've heard some like digital comic reading and things like that. So some of them were applicable, and then there was other ones that were not so applicable. Like one that was like some weird, like it was a booth that was some weird thing that you could like put your tablet inside that you would like hang over your couch. It was kind of just in the middle, and there were couches, and I wasn't sure what was going on. At one point, people I think were just using it as a place to sit. Like I saw still in there, and it was in the middle of.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So some of them were like that, and there was like a strange little booth, which was really bizarre. Things like that kind of end up in the convention too.
Yeah, that is very. What else was in the dealer's hall that accompanied everything there? Right.
So aside from the tech, so it was kind of like centered around this tech. Unique exhibits that were unique to the convention. They had like a wax sculpture exhibit, which was super duper.
Oh, okay.
So kind of like if you've ever seen them there, it's basically like that, but you could get really close to them, and they picked specific wax sculptures that would have catered to the audience. So movie, and I'm pretty sure it's built to life size because he is really, really tall, and I only came up to like maybe his like mid chest, which was really cool. And then they also had one. They actually revealed a new wax sculpture modeled after Steve Wozniak. That stood right in the middle of it, and he had his hand, and it's actually just Steve Wozniak standing there about to start moving. That was super cool. You could get really close and personal. You could like put your arm around them and take pictures with them, which you usually see at like the wharf and stuff because they're usually behind barriers. So that was a cool experience. And then like any other dealer's hall, there's like the typical vendors selling like trade back. What was weird to me was because of the technology aspect, which they had to put in the center of the room because that was kind of what they tried to make the focal point. It kind of, the artist alley was split so that it was artist alley on one far end of the dealer's hall and then more artist alley on the other end. So the artists were set to the rest of them. And some people who may not have been able to get through the entire artist or the entire dealer's hall might not have even been able to see all of the artists because they didn't know that there were more on this in half like that. That was kind of odd.
Interesting. I'm kind of wondering. Interesting. I feel like this is more of an experimentation and combining it with like comic books and everything related.
Right. Somehow. It actually says on their website, the tagline they used, they said they're advertising it as bringing together two of America's greatest superheroes, pop culture and technology. So I guess that's what they were trying to.
So speaking of the artist alley, did you manage to kind of look through some of the artwork that was there?
Yeah, I did. So my favorite local artists, I love being able to talk to them. I actually met a really cool artist. His username, I don't remember his actual like artist name, but his username Travesty17 or something like that. We had a really cool conversation. I bought a bunch of his art, and I was, like you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I was Nightwing and Robin art, and he took a picture of me with the art, which is super fun. I love being able to talk to artists one-to-one, like just normal like people. I always love meeting all the artists. All the art's super cool. It's definitely different. Like I said, I haven't been to a comic convention since WonderCon. I'm usually getting more into that sort of fandom too. So it's definitely cool seeing the discrepancy in the art at anime conventions, and then the people tend to draw for certain things because like it was weird not seeing anime art for like the first time at a convention ever. There were some people who had it, but it was since I usually frequent the anime conventions.
It's definitely a different type of taste. Like there's definitely like anime, but was raised up on reading comics for a while. So like it was not quite as of a weird transition, but I can definitely I can definitely see the definition. So there's particular artwork.
Yeah, I always buy artwork at every con. I bought I always buy a lot of prints because I love possibly some more that I've like stuck other places. But there's definitely I have 4 prints hanging up right now. I'm really into Teen Titans now. They look really cool. I can probably post pictures of what I ended up buying too in the photo gallery later too. The artists supporting artists and stuff. It's always fun.
Yeah, definitely. As an artist, I can definitely relate. That's
when someone comes into the booth and they get really excited about the art that they're selling and buying it and getting really excited about it. I'm sure that feels good to them too. Someone told me they liked my art. I know it would make me happy. So I can only imagine for people who are actually really good at it, unlike me, that must feel really good for them too.
All right. One of the things that it draws different crowds, anime convention, we have this different crowd for cosplay and so on. Comic book cosplayers are a tad different in the sense that, majority of the cosplays are comic book characters.
Right. So one thing I noticed a lot, that I was like kind of going over as I was going home, kind of thinking to myself, like, oh, what are the like difference between anime conventions is a lot spread out. So at anime conventions, I tend to notice that the cosplayers are a lot younger. They tend to be like young teenagers or like cosplay, or maybe don't have the funds to like invest in really big, extravagant cosplays. While on the comic book end, the cosplayers, they just go. And the big ones that I saw at this not upcoming, but at Silicon Valley Comic Con, there was a really, really spot costume and like super accurate Wonder Woman and super accurate Superman just standing in the front of the dealer's hall. And it's like they walked straight out of the costumes that you see the most or whatever. Movies are coming up too. So alongside the really cool Batman versus Superman costumes, we also had some really cool Civil War costumes. One really, 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 really cool Iron Man costume that like opens up and like lights up, and I'm like ready for him to start flying. Really mean to everyone around him. Nice. It was super cool, but yeah.
That's sick. Yeah, I feel like what's funny, that thing about it, start like when they get to adulthood, like they become comic book cosplayers.
That's kind of how I feel right now. It's like, honestly, I'm starting to push to be doing this, and then I go to a comic convention, I'm like, oh wait, never mind, people have been doing this, and they're like, these people are clearly adults and they're still having a good time. So now I feel like comic costumes might, well, depending on which ones you're comparing, some of the anime costumes are really extravagant. Comic books, they seem to be super extravagant, and then it's just like when you're an adult, you have more resources to spend into your costumes as well.
That is very true. I definitely enjoy the comic book crowd. Like the cosplayers are really awesome.
Right.
Yeah, that guy pretty chill, and like the costumes are really detailed. It's just like wow.
Yeah, and it seems like that's just the commonplace too. It seems like a lot of people like when, especially if it's like San Diego Comic Con or maybe even just for Silicon Valley Comic Con, it's like the one thing they do a year and they just spend and focus on that one costume and make it like.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, so one of the things that I feel like as con goers, we put money aside. Now out of curiosity, um, what was your go-to place for food? Because like in a lot of food places, like if you go down towards the San Jose State College,
Hmm.
was there a case where was there food trucks kind of the same thing as Fanime to where you had to venture out for food?
There might have been food trucks, but I did not run into them. I only stayed in a hotel for Saturday night. I actually drove when I came to preview night for Friday. I drove in and then picked up my badge and stayed overnight. So we went and ate at a crepe place that was like a little bit downtown past the train tracks. So maybe like blocks walk. Food was pretty good. It was my friend who hadn't eaten yet. We just kind of like walked with him and he took us to this. I think it was either Vietnamese or Korean, and I think it was called something like, oh, it was something kind of vulgar. It was like Pho 69 or something like that. That's how I'd have actually been the restaurant name, but the food looked really, really good, so I kind of regret not eating there.
I see. I see.
Psycho Donuts, which is apparently like a staple in San
Yes.
Jose. I'd never been there before.
It's funny, and I'm actually sad to admit this. I have never been to Psycho Donuts at all.
Yeah, I'd never been. I've been going to Fanime since I was like 13. I've skipped the times I've actually gone,
Mhm.
and I'd never been to Psycho Donuts until this year. I don't know why, but it's like right there.
I know, I know. It is. It has been.
A movie theater. So I walked in and I ordered a bunch of donuts and they were daunting and scary, but they definitely,
No.
yeah, they were yummy.
Awesome, awesome. Um, that's yeah. I think after so.
I tried the cookies and cream one and I tried the one that had like Captain Crunch cereal on top and then like marshmallow frosting.
Nice.
They were really good.
Back to the convention.
Hmm.
So in terms of the convention, how it was organized, any other convention
Yeah,
would?
so like any other convention, it also had panels and a costume contest. Which was like their equivalent of the masquerade. They didn't call it the masquerade attend, but like every other aspect of the convention, the lines were so ridiculous.
Mm,
Like I couldn't even find the ended.
damn.
So I was supposed to be. I really wanted to attend the costume contest because I love, as a cosplayer, that's my favorite part of any convention is seeing the. I waited for the costume contest to end and took pictures of the cosplayers afterwards.
Mm,
But like Fanime, the panels are separated out into the also some downstairs, and I think there were also some inside of the hotels, like inside of the Marriott and inside of the Hyatt as well. Unfortunately, like everything else, the panels that I didn't get a chance to get inside, even with press
mm-hmm,
privilege,
mm-hmm.
they combined the press and VIP lines. And once you got inside, you still couldn't see anything, so it kind of like defeated the purpose of attending.
Wow. Was the VIP line just as long?
Not really shelled out for those VIP passes because they did have some really big high profile guests at this con. They had the entire original cast for Back to the Future. Who played Ginny from Harry Potter was there. Lots of really big names. So people really did shell out for those VIP passes so they could do the meet and greets.
Wow. So badges or tickets were selling well then.
Yeah, I did see. Honestly, I saw a lot of people with those VIP passes. I'm assuming that because prices for registration so high, it's
Mm,
because they had so many big names that like I don't usually see at conventions. I mean, but for the cons that I've been to, these are some of the biggest names that I've seen on a convention bill.
right, right, definitely. What was the vibes there at the convention? Being this is the first time for this convention for this size.
From what I experienced, to me is there were a lot of families there, like older comic fans and their like kids attending, and they were all having a good time, and they'd all be having like a lot of fun looking at all the stuff in the convention. When I talked to people that I was like friends with, I spoke, and they had similar qualms with the convention itself. That they thought that it was a little bit poorly organized. Registration was a bit of a mess. For me personally, the vibe that I got was that a lot of the convention really only took place on Saturday. It was empty, which was a little bit disappointing for how much people had to pay to attend all 3 days. But
Mm-hmm.
overall, people seemed to be pretty happy. But they all had tended to happen because of the RFID.
Yeah, I definitely agree on those points. One of the things I think for um, I think what worries me a bit about this convention is that with the $100 price tag,
Mm.
but for a 3-day convention and having Saturday being kind of the main event and Friday and Sunday kind of being leftovers, I feel like
Yeah,
that might have been a bit more disappointing if I was an attendee who would pay that much to go to
right,
a con.
exactly. Because like, not only was it depending on how long the con is, it's always that one day that's way more packed than the other days. But like, there's still the other days are still full length days with just preview night, which was basically only open from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. And perk of that being I picked up my badge at all. But usually that's what day zero is for. And usually you don't have to pay for day zero. Like at AX, I went on day zero, but you did pay for that extra day of Friday. And yeah, you got early access to the dealers hall, but some of the dealers weren't even there yet. Half the dealers were no one there. So
Mm.
that was kind of odd to me was that it was advertised as a 3-day convention, but the first day kind of felt more like most people on the last day of the convention, they usually only spend half the day there and then they have to drive back or go home. And that day, the con was very.
So my question to you then regarding that is, in your opinion,
Mhm.
do you think for this convention was worth the price, or do you think that it was maybe worth only going for a day?
Well, at celebrities, and I feel like, yeah, you'd get your money's worth if you attended for the full 3 days. If you're going just for what I usually go for, which is the con experience of going around taking pictures of cosplayers, you could have probably easily gotten away with just paying for that one day. Because honestly, you could have, if you're not panels, you could have easily gotten everything you wanted to get in on that one Saturday instead of paying for the full weekend.
Okay, okay. I kind of like nobody. Everybody's has a different reason to go. Maybe you're definitely into the celebrities. Maybe you're not.
Mm-hmm.
And so on and so on. I figured would happen. But no, I think that one of the things I think comes with every first year convention. I mean, like
Like they've done Big Wow in the past, and it is technically just a rebranding of Big Wow, but this is kind of like their first time doing it this way.
yeah, and like the elbow room, like
Mm-hmm,
okay,
exactly.
you're growing, you're figuring stuff out, there's some stuff that didn't work here, maybe work
Right,
for this one, even though it is not technically a first year con.
right. And I mean, for a, in quotations again, first year con, had an attendance of 60,000 people. And to put in perspective how many people that is, I think that's like almost 3 times what 25 to 27 per year. So that's like 2 times to 3 times as many people that usually attend Fanime. So
Is
that's
it?
pretty good for a first time convention. From what I saw, I mean, I was trying to actually Google and find out what the attendance rate for Fanime 2015 was, and I couldn't find it on Anime Clockwork. But
Mm-hmm.
I think from what I remember, their attendance is usually around 27. I
You're
could be wrong.
you're actually right. So I just look up the Wiki. These total amount number of attendees does it's a bland number because it couldn't mean like
For anyone who didn't
yeah,
pay for a pass.
but roughly a rough estimate. So the last one they have on here is from 2013. And it was at
Mm-hmm.
25,542 attendees.
Right. So around like between 25 to 27, I think is the estimate for what they said for with the steampunk convention
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
hmm So with that being said, holy crap! Like,
Yeah, I know. It didn't feel like there were 60,000 people there. And then just to put in perspective, I also Googled what the typical attendance for AX was person difference, but AX felt so much bigger. I couldn't even like comprehend that that was 60,000 people at that convention.
my question then for you is for Valley Comic Con. With 60,000 people in, what how was it crowded in some spots, or I mean, with the exception of the trying to scan your badge or your convention, like was it crowded at any given time, especially on Saturday, or was it fine? Because
Yeah, I mean, it did get like, I mean, maybe it's just I'm a AX regular and I'm really used to like walking very, very slowly in the dealer's hall to get anywhere because it's always so overcrowded, but sandwiched in.
mm.
But maybe because I'm just used to the high volume capacity of AX, I thought, oh, this is normal for a convention. Maybe to possibly that might be their first convention. That might have been significantly overwhelming.
I see. Okay, I could definitely see if somebody would say that. For kind of curious as far as like, um, I wonder what is the max amount of people that convention can hold.
Yeah, exactly. Since considering this is the same averages at around 25, if this is Silicon Valley Comic Con's first year and they only intend to expand that rate, then they're going to have to hold more than AX's capacity. That's for sure.
Right. I mean, I remember hearing, and this is unconfirmed. I might have to go look. The convention center is expanding. Like they're going to build another building attached to.
I heard something similar.
Attached to the main building.
Other ones I've been to for other cons is not that big.
Yeah, it is definitely been around for a long time, and it's definitely. I think that I believe that might be the case where they're expanding. I mean, they literally the governor of San Jose literally declared on May 25th.
Sounds about right. That's usually when it's held.
Yeah, May 27th. Basically, I find that's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. That they can recognize something like that for their as something so impactful on their city that they would recognize a day for it.
Another thing I can think of is ask, pros and cons. What was good about the convention? What was bad about the convention?
So like we've already said, lines were super long, like excruciatingly long. I'm so glad I did not have to stand in them. Rap lines were also long. I did not stand in a line for an autograph, but I did hear a couple complaints about how the autograph lines were kind of managed so sometimes maybe they didn't quite know what was going on, and then that kind of got a little bit messy. So lines were definitely a problem. The RFID chip, I really only heard complaints about it at Silicon Valley Comic Con. The pro of the RFID to us, because we were able to register early enough, we didn't have to wait in line for our registration at all, which is super duper cool. So that kind of weirded me out in a way, because I feel like they were trying to avoid that by mailing it to you, but I guess not.
Yeah.
The pros of the convention were there was a lot of drafts, even if you didn't go for celebrity meet and greets. They had some interesting and unique stuff like the Wax Museum. They had the whole Stan Lee exhibit, which had some really cool Spider-Man busts, and then like actual like original page sketches from comics that were on display as well. And then like any convention, the cosplay was phenomenal. I had a really good time running around looking at cosplayers, taking pictures with. Yeah, I mean, I had a good time at the convention. It was pricey, that's for sure. If I were attending, only attended for one day, and that would have been that Saturday, because I feel like there wasn't really much to get from when you went on Friday, a casual attendee just going for the con experience on Saturday.
Okay. Awesome. Actually, one more question I forgot to ask.
Yeah, for sure.
We have these experiences at these conventions, and there are only things that we can only explain to other people out there who've never been to. It's like the convention moment. It's just what it is. So for you, was there ever a con moment for you at, or just whatever?
Yeah, there was. Because I was cosplaying as Robin. I feel like this happens to cosplayers a lot. It's because I'm really, really, really small and really, really short and very bubbly, and I like to jump around places. People, like, I maybe took pictures with like 6 or 7 Nightwing cosplayers and like other cosplayers from the Batman series. They were really friendly to me. They were treating me like I was actually Robin. That is always a really cool experience for me. Like I mentioned in my Kraken Con podcast, that I am the character that I'm cosplaying as, is always really fun to me. Alongside that, when I wasn't cosplaying as Robin, I also cosplayed as Danny Phantom in 2000s. And I guess that's a costume that people don't usually see a lot, and also strikes a lot of nostalgia in a certain group of people that are like in my age range, because it was super good. And while I was walking around in that costume, people were like, "Oh, I remember that show," and then I would walk past them, and then they start talking about, and then suddenly start discussing how they remembered watching Danny Phantom as a kid, and I thought that was really funny.
Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah, that always makes me a character. I'm like, "Oh, that's so
nice." Yep, I definitely know that satisfying feeling, just like walking by and
like made them feel like that was me, and I'm like, "Yeah, that feels awesome."
Well, I want to thank you again for joining me for the
Absolutely.
podcast. Before we go, where can I find you on the internet?
You can find me at Kazutan on Tumblr and Instagram and Facebook.
Also, read up her review of Silicon Valley Comic Con on our website at missionstarpodcast.com. Which personally, you can follow me personally. No, I didn't maybe do that. You can personally follow. God damn it. Effective Naruto. And you can follow the work that me and Katsu-san work at. um, so yeah, definitely check out all the coverage from Silicon Valley Comic Con as well as WonderCon as well. We got some coverage via review and so on. Our next convention because I just put up the most recent ones. So the next ones that we're going to be covering, we're going to have people going to about.
That'll be me.
We got one of our people going to check out Biggest Little FurCon, Fanime, and we'll definitely keep you guys in the loop. But with that being said, this is Anthony, and that's